Greetings, YouTube. Today I'll be talking about an article which links to a research paper that was recently published. And this is a proper paper. It's very detailed, lots of data in there, though it is readable. It's long form and there's a lot of notes and things like that. But the charts are easy to grasp if you don't want to just do a quick skim. And they are quite interesting. It deals with the sexual harassment that servers deal with on the job in American restaurants. Harassment from coworkers, harassment from management, and harassment from the guests that are the clients, the people who come to eat the food. And it should come as no surprise to anyone, women suffer this far greater than do men. And in fact, I found it interesting that men suffered harassment from coworkers and management in only one category higher than women, and that is speculations about their sexual orientation. Apparently, if a man presents as something other than heteronormative, coworkers and management hassle them about that. But the customers, people eating the food, don't hassle the men about that as much. In fact, there's a 1 point greater harassment of women in that particular regard. But it's neck and neck. It's like 22-23% of the customers harass servers about their sexual orientation. Whereas it's much more biased for the coworkers and management. I find that interesting. What is it about the coworkers and management that seems to instigate them to question the sexual orientation of their coworkers? Who gives a crap? Who cares? But all of the women suffered harassment at the hands of coworkers, management, and guests. Literally, in some cases, as in like inappropriate touching. And the biggest number of harassment, the biggest percentage of the harassment they suffered was at the hands of the customers. 65% of women suffered harassment, sexual harassment at the hands of customers. The most interesting is that 45% of male customers male employees, servers, have never suffered sexual harassment at the hands of their guests. So it's not difficult to understand while many men can say, well, I've never suffered sexual harassment. It doesn't happen. Because it isn't happening to them. It's only happening to 55% of them. 45% is a big chunk of any population. So these men can legitimately say, I've never suffered this. And it's very easy to go from that to think, oh, it doesn't happen. And you'd be wrong in making that assumption, but it's not difficult to understand how it can happen. And of course, the people making tipped wages are receiving far more harassment than those are people who are making salaried wages. Now, the difference here is that people on straight time, they get paid X per hour, and that's it. In America, minimum wage is like $7.25 an hour, I believe, at the moment. We're currently fighting it at $10.10, though it should be around $15 an hour. And if it were based on the amount of value that corporations get out of us, it should be between $18 and $21 an hour. So corporations are getting between $18 and $21 an hour of value out of a worker in America, but they're only paying $7.25. So it sounds like a pretty good deal if you're a corporation now, doesn't it? But the tipped workers, they get paid as little as $2.13 an hour, and their tips are supposed to make up the difference. The reality is that if you conclude tips, many women are making $9 an hour as a server. And being a server is a miserable job. 65% of women are suffering sexual harassment at the hands of the guests. And yet they're only pulling in $9 an hour. Though if they could be making $9,000 an hour, and it wouldn't justify sexual harassment. I think one of the things we need to do in America is get away from the idea that tips are wages. I think that every single worker that's a server should make minimum wage. At the moment, $7.25, $10.10 if we ever get this off the ground, unlikely with so many Republicans in office. And it should be $15 an hour. But it isn't. And we should do away completely with the idea that tips are parts of wages. If someone wants to give a tip on top of a server's wage, cool. But that server should be making enough to live on. They should be making a living wage. And they aren't. And they should be. And that power dynamic, because they have to curry favor from their customers. Otherwise, they're not going to make enough money to live. In addition, we in America have a restaurant called Hooters. For those outside America, you may not know that Hooters is slang for mammary glands, breasts, tits. So we have a restaurant chain in America called Tits. And somehow we aren't supposed to be perceiving that as being sexually inappropriate or being misogynistic or sexist. That's just supposed to be, oh, it's fine, it's a family restaurant. Kids eat free there. Literally, kids eat free there. So you're bringing children to a restaurant and raising them in an environment where a restaurant named Tits is exploiting women for their breasts and their sexual proclivities, for their flirting with the customers, so they can curry enough favor to get enough wages to live. That's twisted. Would America accept a restaurant called Penises? Would that be a big chain in America? Or would that maybe just make them a smidge uncomfortable? So I encourage you to go look at the article. Just look at the charts if you don't want to read the whole thing. Again, it's a long form article. It's an actual paper. They've actually done the research, which is important. We need these research done. Yes, I'm aware that most people are going to be going, you women get screwed more than men in the service industry? Duh. You're right. It is a duh moment. I don't think anyone is really surprised by these results. But the fact that we have actual data, that's important. Because you can't dispute that. It's much harder to argue against research that shows how they did it in their methodology and their resources and things than just dismissing it. Oh, that's just people complaining. It's anecdotal. Well, no, this isn't just anecdotal. This is actual research. So that's harder to fight against. It's going to make it more difficult for the misogynists and the male supremacists and the MRA members to fight against this when you can present them with a paper. They'll still do it, of course, because that's what they are. Petty man children that are complaining about losing their privilege in the world. But it's harder to do. And you may win over some more people to your cause when you can show them the data that says, okay, this is what women are going through in America today. Maybe we should do something to prevent this and making sure that doesn't happen in the future. At least, I'd like to hope that's what will happen. I'd like to hold that out there as something that we can move towards. So go give it a look. I found it interesting, and it's informative and depressing and needed, and I'm glad it's there, and I wish we didn't have